Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on where you are, and welcome to Thorogood's event, Achieving a Win-Win for Consumer Packaged Goods Manufacturers and Retailers. Before we start, let me introduce myself quickly. My name is James Leonard. I'm a Senior Business Intelligence and Analytics Consultant at Thurgood Associates, and I'll be taking you through today's session. So the agenda for today. First of all, what I'll do is just start off looking at a quick overview of Thorogood for those who haven't met us before. What I'll then do is introduce our use case for the day in a little bit more detail. What we'll then do is use Power BI to walk through how we can achieve this win-win scenario using the features of Power BI and also the data within our organization. Finally, after we walked through the kind of hands-on demo session, I'll finish off by talking about some of the additional data and the data platform considerations that you need to take into account when creating a solution such as this. Okay, so for those of you in the room who aren't familiar with Thurgood, we're a specialist in data and analytics consultancy with over 30 years of experience delivering data and analytics solutions to the world's leading enterprise organizations. The solutions we deliver are still based on our founding principle. That is, by always locking onto the business goals and then unleashing the technical and analytics capabilities, we can maximize the opportunities from those business objectives. We maintain this business focus across a range of delivery areas, right through from initial strategies and roadmaps, proof of concepts and pilot delivery, to the full solution implementation and then the wider rollout of that solution. We do this by not only maintaining solutions, but empowering individuals and organizations that they work for to use the tools that we create. We do this with the help of our technology partners. We're an independent consultancy, meaning we don't partner with just one vendor. We work instead with the best of breed technologies in the data and analytics space. We do this for enterprise organizations, typically across 4 key verticals: consumer goods and manufacturing, as well as pharmaceutical companies, which is really the focus of today's kind of use case and demo session. We also work with financial services, so retail banking and capital markets, as well as insurance companies that you can see on the screen as well. Specifically though, for today's event, we do have significant domain expertise with consumer goods companies. And what I'll do now is kind of go into the use case introduction, and we can talk about that in a little bit more detail. So today we're taking a look at a Power BI case study where we've taken Power BI, the data, and ultimately the insights to that next level. The case study I'm going to look at is entitled Achieving a Win-Win for Consumer Packaged Goods Manufacturers and Retailers. So this is a real project that we did with one of the top 3 global consumer packaged goods company. The solution was deployed across multiple markets in North America, Europe, and Asia. It delivered millions in savings, even more in growth opportunities across the various markets, and helped the consumer goods company improve its relationship with its retail partners as well. So what does this all mean? What does the solution do? So this use case is all around understanding the margin a manufacturer is making on its products and the margin made by their retail partner on those products as well. So for example, showing that when 100 plus is being sold by the manufacturer, in this example, Fraser and Neave, as well as the retailers such as 7-Eleven, both are making reasonable margins. Being able to analyze this information on a large scale across a number of different business axes will help us deliver significant value. And we can do that by optimizing the products and the pricing of the products that we're selling through those retail partners, ensuring efficient expenditure on advertisement and promotional spend, so making sure we're promoting the right flavor of 100 plus, for example. And this will all culminate in improving our overall profitability. When we look to tackle a problem such as this, we always want to focus on the key questions that the business community need to answer. And this is really imperative for any Power BI or data solution that we create. So, for example, in this situation, what are we looking for? So, which customers represent the greatest opportunity? Is it, in my example, 7-Eleven, or is it another? Which products should I sell through which channels? Should I be using hypermarkets, for example, or should I be using e-commerce platforms, especially relevant during COVID-19, for example? Then other things, what impact are my promotional activities having? Am I making efficient use of that advertising and promotional spend, or could it be better used elsewhere? Should I keep selling the same products that I've sold before? Should I look to extend my product profile, or should I look to remove some of the products that I'm selling because they're just not working through that channel? So, for example, selling through local 7-Elevens, 100 pack of 100 plus. It's not something I'm going to want to carry. So am I selling things through the right channels, through the right retail partners? What I want to do before we move over to that is quickly talk through the data model. So the data set we're going to use for today's demo is from a personal care company that deals with a number of retail partners. They either deal with those retail partners directly or indirectly through distributors. We have all the sales and direct cost information at a product, retailer, channel and month level. This can then be aggregated to higher levels for those particular dimensions. So what I'm going to do is now switch over to Power BI and we can have a look at the application that we're going to walk through in today's demo. So as I move into Power BI, I'm using the desktop tool for today's demonstration. We can see our overall profitability dashboard. So here I'm getting an overview of some of the key metrics that I'm using to drive my manufacturing company. And I can see things like my total operating profit. So this is our operating profit as the manufacturer. I can compare that directly to the profit that our retail partners are making. So first of all, I can see I'm making a profit, my retail partners are making a profit, but I'm also making a slightly bigger profit. So I'm probably pretty pleased with that as well. You can see that by things like the channel. So I could have a look at this for drugstores, for example, if I wanted to. Potentially I spoke about things like hypermarkets or e-commerce platforms, so I can make those selections and you see everything update within the screen. And really what I'm looking to do today, as I come in with my business hat on, I'm looking for how I can work better with individual retail partners. So it's coming up potentially to our quarterly reviews. What I want to do is make sure I'm prepared for those, know how I can work better with some of those retailers. What I can see here is a breakdown the performance across our different retail partners. So here we've got our actuals against the notional target. I can make selections here. And again, everything within the application will update. So I can see the performance across things like my brand. So anything in the bottom left, it's decreasing growth year on year. And also our profit and our retailer profit. So not where we want to be. We want things to be in this top right segment. What I can see pretty quickly is that Williams is ahead of the target that we've set them. And someone who's quite far behind is Inco. So Inco, one of our fourth biggest retail partner, but pretty far behind the notional target that we've set them. We could again do some analysis by selecting Inco. You can see a couple of those brand families are down in the bottom left quadrant. But really, I want to be able to analyze that in a little bit more detail ahead of that quarterly review that we've got coming up with Inco. So to do that, I'm going to use what we call drill-through analytics, so guided analytics built into the Power BI application. So you can see when I hover over Inco, there's some instruction to right-click to drill through. If I right-click on that bar, I can drill through to a more kind of retailer-focused dashboard. So it will pass the context from that high level to that more detailed level. And this again is allowing me to analyze Inco in far more detail. So you can see that context is passed through. We can again see some key metrics, so the retailer margin against the average margin. So actually Inco are doing pretty well. And again, they have a pretty good market share. But then looking at the kind of different channels performance against the notional targets that we've sent as well, pretty broad brushes behind across all of the different channels. It's not performing well from each channel perspective. Again, from a brand perspective, a couple of brands, Rad and Sudi, a little bit behind. But what sticks out to me the most is this waterfall chart showing what's been an increase year on year. So hand wash has increased. We've got some pretty big decreases. So face wash, but also here bath and shower gel, making up a pretty large contribution to that decrease in growth. So ahead of that meeting with Inco that are coming up, I want to look at what we can do with bath and shower to make some suggestions when we meet with them as to how we can improve the performance of that sector. What I've got to do that is my retailer opportunities. So this made us look like a stacked bar chart in Power BI, which it is. But under the hood, there's an awful lot of calculation computation going on. So we're using the collaborative filtering algorithm, pretty similar to the algorithm that Netflix uses to make recommendations. So James has just watched Friends. Maybe he'd like to watch Modern Family as well. So it uses that kind of algorithm under the hood in a tool called Databricks and in the Azure platform to calculate that opportunity. So for me, as an end user, I just see it as opportunity value. And what I want to do is make that selection for Inco. So select Inco and see what the opportunities are. So you can see some examples here. We've got a significant opportunity across a couple of products. Where I really want to focus is with bath and shower. It's that area where they're really decreasing. Then here we can see some pretty big options in terms of opportunities. So both Storm Air shower gel, where potentially we can look at how we can push this brand further, maybe with some advertising and promotion to improve our sales value for that. Or actually some new product introductions. So this Storm Jungle Cleansing Shower Gel, not something we currently sell with Inco. So a suggestion that I can make, you can see some significant opportunity there. So hopefully that will help turn around the bath and shower gel segment for Inco. And that's the suggestion that I'm going to make going into that meeting. That was one example of how we can use Power BI using kind of guided analytics to go from a high-level overview to help me do that preparation for the Inco meeting. What I want to do now is kind of look at a more ad hoc way of analyzing the data using Power BI, using some of the inbuilt smart functionality, machine learning functionality that's available under the hood in Power BI. And the way that I'm going to look at this is maybe I've come in on a Monday morning, I haven't yet had my coffee and I'm lacking a little bit of inspiration. So what I want to do is get Power BI to do a lot of the legwork and telling me where I need to work, what I need to do to improve the performance of my manufacturing company. And what I've switched over to here is the key influencers visualization. So this was relatively new in Power BI earlier this year, end of last year. What it does is run under the hood machine learning algorithms to help us get more insight into our data. So if I select it, what we're able to do from a visualization perspective is ask it to analyze something. So I'm asking Power BI to analyze what drives growth within my organization and to explain it by some of those dimensions that I showed in the model earlier. So things like my brand, my channel. And what it does is it searches through the data. And here I'm asking, what is an influencer for growth? So we can see hand wash is one of the biggest influencers for growth. If a product is in hand wash, it's 3.5 times more likely to be a contributor to growth. The visualization also looks at things like my segmentation. So what kind of groupings help drive growth within our organization? So 20% more likely to be a contributor to growth is the combination of channel is discounter and size class is not known. So potentially some useful insights there as well. But what I want to do this week is look at what's causing a decrease in growth and see what we can do to turn that around. So if I select a decrease in growth, we can see, again, we get some recommendations that are driving a decrease in growth. So the top two here, two different sectors, hand moisturizer and body moisturizer, both pretty likely to be contributors to a decrease in growth. What we can see third on the list, though, is this brand family, Maria Carmen. So nearly 2 times more likely to be a contributor to a decrease in growth. And you can see that in comparison to the other brand families. It just so happens that I have a meeting coming up with the Maria Carmen brand manager. So I want to do a little bit more exploration to see what is driving this 2 times more likely to be a decrease in growth that's contributing to that Maria Carmen overall number. So what I'm going to do again is ask Power BI to help me with some of that analysis. So here what I'm bringing up is the decomposition tree. So this decomposition tree, again, uses that kind of light bulb functionality in Power BI to help me really do under the hood analysis. So I can see here Maria Carmen. I pulled out my brand families. Maria Carmen, again, pretty high on the list in terms of overall performance, but we want to understand what's driving that kind of decrease in growth. What I can do is I click the plus icon, is I can either drill down a path that I'm interested in, so I could look at how this varies by channel, or I can ask Power BI using that smart light bulb symbol to make suggestions. So what contributes to a low value of turnover growth for Maria Carmen? So I'll press that. You can see it's highlighted that discounter and small supermarket channels are pretty big contributors to a low turnover growth, so negative turnover growth for both of these, minus 13%, 5%, whereas pharmacies on the other end of the spectrum up by 15%. So what is it within discounters that's driving that low value? So again, using that light bulb functionality, the under the hood machine learning to tell us, in this case, a lot of it's driven by sector. So you can see here, for example, deodorant is a pretty big contributor to that, a poor performance in turnover growth. Let's see what it's like for small supermarkets. So just make that selection, small supermarkets. Here it's hand moisturizer, but also deodorant appearing again. If we look at hypermarkets, again, body moisturizer, deodorant there again. That seems to be a common theme across all of these. Again, deodorant right up at the top for our convenience stores as well. So let's have a look at the deodorants for Maria Carmen in a little bit more detail. So what I've got on the screen now is just a scatter plot that shows me the kind of overall performance of my product. So in the top right corner, that's where we've got a good gross margin and a good year-on-year growth. We don't want anything to be within the bottom left-hand corner. What I'm going to use is the out-of-the-box clustering abilities within Power BI. So we can automatically find clusters within our data to group like properties products together. So we do that by hitting automatically find clusters. That will come up and we can automatically find clusters in our data. This does take probably 30 seconds or so for the purposes of the demo. Here's one I made earlier that's already got those clusters defined. So we chose to kind of group by 7 clusters. You can see that's now everything's color-coded within the chart based on the different clusters that I've selected. And now we can start making selections. So we can see here the bright yellow, generally a pretty good gross margin, but pretty moderate year-on-year growth. Here we've got this kind of brown, darker black color in the middle, which is typically not a bad margin, a pretty big spread of turnover growth, but more on the right-hand side, so edging towards where we want to be. Then we've got this good growth year-on-year, but pretty low margin cluster 2. So let's have a look at where Maria Carmen's products are. And what we'll quickly see is that we've got 2 products here in the bottom left-hand quadrant, so really low gross margin and decreasing year-on-year growth. So not something that we really want to have within our product portfolio. Let's have a look to see what we can do with those deodorants. So sorry, I'd already filtered down to deodorant. So these are the deodorant products for Maria Carmen. We've got these 2 products that are pretty poor performance. So what is it we can do to turn that around? So what I can use in this scenario is a correlation plot. So here I'm using an embedded R visualization. So if I click on this, you'll see it's running some R code under the hood to look at what drives the growth within Maria Carmen. So here we've got some of those business building things that I was talking about earlier. So brand marketing expenditure, how much are we spending on advertisement and promotion, but then also things like my business building CPP, business building pack as some examples. And what we're looking for is the effect they have on our turnover and sellout value. What I should highlight is that our turnover and sellout value are negative. So a dark red symbol highlights there's a strong positive correlation, and that's what we're looking for in this analysis. So I've already filtered this down to Maria Carmen. I can see a pretty strong correlation between both turnover and sellout value and this brand marketing expenditure and business building CPP. What I want to do is see in a little bit more detail how that relates to deodorants. So deodorants was what I could see were performing pretty poorly. So if I make a selection on deodorant, that again will run the R calculations in the background to look at the correlation between those metrics and my business drivers. What we can see for Maria Carmen, for deodorants, there's an even stronger correlation between turnover, sellout value, and our brand marketing expenditure and business building CPP. So my suggestion going into that meeting with the Maria Carmen brand manager, let's look at what we can do from an advertisement and promotional perspective for those 2 poorly performing deodorant products to see if we can turn that around before we go ahead and look at delisting them if there's really nothing that we can do. So that was just a second demonstration looking at how we can use a lot of the out-of-the-box machine learning functionality to help us look at how we can kind of get that win-win situation with our retail partners. So what I'm going to do is just switch back to the presentation and just talk a little bit about what goes on in the background to help us perform this analysis. So what I wanted to really do is look at the underlying setup that allowed us to perform that seamless analysis. So the diagram that I'm displaying here shows a typical setup in order to support this kind of trade profitability and analytics and answer some of the common questions. So in this scenario, there was a need for us to combine data from a number of different data sources, both internal and external data. So a problem I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with within their organizations. In this use case, we used internal ERP data, which typically consisted of the sales information, the cost of goods sold, potentially the discounts and rebates, as well as the trade and consumer advertisement and promotional spend. The CRM system that contains the retailer details, and potentially things like the retail order information as well. The external source that we used here provides things like the sell-out value and sell-out volume. So that helps us kind of look at that sell-through profitability so we can get the indication of how much our retail partners are making. And it also potentially gives us things like the recommended retail price as well as the distribution. So we can see how much in my earlier example, 100 plus, our retailers are selling and at what price they're selling it at. To support the detailed analyses that I showed, the data needs to be mapped to our corporate master data. So things like Maria Carmen, aligning those different data sets But when that's all been aligned, we're able to perform the seamless analysis that I showed. But what underpins this process is the technical infrastructure that enables us to process, store, model, analyze, and visualize ultimately that combined data set. So in today's example, we were using the Microsoft Azure architecture to store and process the data that we need, as well as in Azure Databricks there performing the collaborative filtering that I showed in the demo to look at some of those potential retailer opportunities as well. And really the things that this data platform help us address are a lot of the considerations that we have to deal with when we're using external data, and we're combining that data from the different external providers. So what is that underlying architecture helping us achieve? Well, I guess the key challenge when working with external data is that you're not in control of it, and you need that kind of setup from an underlying system perspective to cope with the numerous potential challenges, such as the granularity of the data. So the data may come in at different levels of granularity in terms of product, customer, and time. So you need to decide how to handle this. Do you allocate the data down from the lowest level, or do you only view it at that aggregate level? The data may arrive on different schedules. So, for example, one data provider may deliver data weekly and another monthly. Therefore, you may have some data misalignment. So do you extrapolate for the missing periods? And if so, on what basis? Do you hide the data where you don't have a full set and potentially lose visibility of the latest period? And some of those data sources. So all decisions that we have to make. Of course, with any data and analytics system, data quality is an ever-present challenge that we need to handle. You need to be able to anticipate the issues and build in the appropriate checks to make sure you're loading accurate information. Of course, the measure definition. So all of the things that we looked at today from a calculation and numbers perspective were measures. So the calculation type or the actual method of calculation may vary across the different sources. So a classic example of this is the units of measure being used. These need to be consistent to ensure like-for-like analysis across the board. And then we need further considerations that we have to make when aligning internal data and external data. So often the data will not be provided on the same coding as your internal hierarchy. So Maria Carmen may not have the same code as Maria Carmen does from the external data provider. So we have to figure out how we map these data sets together. But as I hopefully showed in the demo, when we've tackled all of these different data considerations, we've got the data platform set up in the background, we can create an intuitive Power BI application that will help us work through the different scenarios that we get on a day-to-day basis to help us gain better insights when we're working to create that win-win scenario between a consumer goods manufacturer and its retailer partners and working across all of our different kind of products, data sets through those different channels, to be able to gain insights and hopefully make tangible decisions and tangible actions so we can work better together. So hopefully that's been useful today and helped you gain an understanding of how you can achieve a win-win for consumer goods companies and retail partners, in this example using Power BI. So with that, I'll say a massive thank you for everyone who attended, and we look forward to welcoming you to an event soon.